In this episode, we speak with Devon Kirk, General Partner at Portage Capital Solutions. The flagship growth strategy within Portage focused on providing flexible capital solutions to later-stage fintech and financial services companies. Portage is a global investment platform with $6.3 billion in assets under management and more than 25 investment professionals across North America, Europe, and the Middle East. The firm has invested in over 100 companies since inception and invests across stages through Portage Ventures and Portage Capital Solutions. The firm is part of Sagard, a global multi-strategy alternative and asset manager with over $33 billion in assets under management. Devon joined the firm in 2022 and co-leads growth equity, structured equity, and special situations investments across financial technology and financial services companies globally, and helps drive the fund's overall strategy. She is based in Toronto. Previously, Devon spent over a decade at CPP Investments, and earlier in her career worked at BMO Harris Nesbitt and Linklaters. Portage Capital Solutions was recognized as a top growth equity firm of 2025 by GrowthCap. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the managing partner of GrowthCap and the executive chairman of Market Insight Media. He is the host of Growth Investor, a podcast featuring today's best investors, executives, and founders. In the minutes ahead, we'll uncover insights and strategies for accelerating growth and succeeding in business.
Devon, great to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's interesting when I think about Portage and how I kind of got to know the firm a little bit better, because Dan is someone who I'd met, your partner, Dan Ballin, is someone who I'd met when he was at PIMCO. And before that, he was at Pinebrook, and one of my good friends is at Pinebrook. I didn't know they knew each other actually decently well. But maybe to set the stage here, if you could tell us about the founding story of Portage and then the different funds that operate within it.
Sure. So Portage was founded 12 years ago now, and it was founded by Adam Fileski and Paul Demeray III, who came from very different backgrounds. Paul Demeray III is from the Demeray family that controls Power Corp, is very much a traditional financial services family, has built an incredible business across North America and Europe. And he's sort of the next gen within that family that, naturally is going to look to growth and innovation and how to drive that across the business. And then Adam Fileski was a founder himself within the fintech landscape and had started personally investing. And together they really developed a thesis around the opportunity to be investing in the fintech space and also the ability to do it in a really differentiated way that was much more of an ecosystem-based approach and really positioning the firm as a very value-added partner to the companies we were investing in, because fintech is complex and there's a lot to navigate for founders as they build businesses in the space. And so from there, they launched a venture fund that has had great success over the years. We're now investing out of the fourth venture fund. And then I joined the firm about 4 years ago alongside Dan to build out the capital solution strategy, which is really the later stage strategy. So picks up where the venture team leaves off from a maturity perspective. So we now have kind of an ability to partner with companies across life stages.
And it's unique that you have this focus on financial services and fintech, and you've been able to invest in a lot of great companies. Your AUM is significant, considering the founding of the company was not decades ago, it was like more a decade ago. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've been successful with this distinct focus?
So I think firstly, fintech can come across as a bit of a niche, but it's truly a large sector, right? Financial services is a large part of global GDP and particularly developed market GDP. And increasingly, financial services is becoming synonymous with fintech in terms of the amount of technology that incumbent financial services firms are acquiring, and then the increasing market share of more technology-first business models in the provision of financial services. So It's a large market, spanning insurance, lending, capital markets, payments, wealth, etc. And so it is a large market. And as I alluded to at the beginning, we think it's a market that really benefits from having partners that can bring expertise, resources, network, and really credibility to bear. Financial services is a trust-based industry, it's a regulated industry, and it's a dynamic industry. And so we find that by virtue of having a broad portfolio of investments in the space, we're able to gather insights that are relevant across our portfolio. And we've also very intentionally cultivated relationships that are relevant to our portfolio companies. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
It's leading me to this area of differentiation. There's other investors out there that also focus on fintech. And, I think people are very knowledgeable on the players, both the incumbents and the ones that are, rising up. And so you have a way of differentiating Portage to these founders in that you do have this kind of long history in financial services. But what are some of the things you bring to bear that's, really salient to these founders when they see Portage versus, some of these other growth equity or venture firms?
Sure. So, firstly, I think we are deeply passionate about fintech, and there's not very many other firms actually that specialize in this area. There are some generalist funds that deploy, but there's very few specialized firms in the space. And I think our passion and commitment to the space shows. We've been continually investing kind of through cycles and have been investing, across geographies as well. And many of the firms that do invest in fintech really just look at kind of B2B SaaS business models, whereas we've always looked kind of across the value chain. So we will look at B2B, at D2C, at asset light, at asset intensive. We think that really allows us to bring a deeper level of expertise and understanding to how these sectors work. And it also provides differentiation and diversification in our portfolio. And I think particularly these days, as everyone's trying to understand how AI is going to impact different companies, we feel really gratified with our strategy of continuing to keep an eye on diversification of business models, which the fintech space really allows in a way that other sectors don't.
I'd like to talk a bit about value creation and kind of the extent to which you extend other capabilities to your portfolio companies. And perhaps there's some AI, maybe insight or professional network that you bring to bear. Would love to just hear like the full gamut of value creation, strategy and tactics.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. We really think about it in terms of kind of expertise, resources, network. Maybe starting from the end, on a network perspective, we have really cultivated a unique ecosystem that, as I alluded to earlier, spans financial services, more traditional financial services, and fintech businesses. And that's very mutually reinforcing. We have a dedicated partnerships team whose full-time job is to help us make commercial and strategic introductions for our portfolio companies. And that's surprisingly unique, and I think works best within the context of a sector specialization where there's a clear ecosystem that you want to be kind of actively cultivating. So last year, we did almost 700 of those types of introductions for our portfolio companies. To give you a sense, in Q1 alone, we had portfolio companies close on 7 new partnerships that were a result of our relationships. And so those types of revenue generating opportunities are really valued by our portfolio companies and can make a big difference, not just in terms of the immediate revenue, but in this space, referenceability and the credibility of having a blue chip customer can be a real difference maker in your trajectory with other customers as well. I would say, secondly, on resources, you hit the nail on the head. We've got resources across a whole bunch of functions, from a go-to-market perspective, a cybersecurity perspective, M&A perspective, et cetera. But undoubtedly, the one that is growing the most and is the most in demand right now is our AI team. We've built an AI center of excellence, and they engage with portfolio companies across a wide variety of needs. As you can imagine, we have companies within our portfolio that are primarily viewing AI as an opportunity to drive efficiency. We have others that are thinking about it more from a product velocity perspective or an accuracy perspective. And so there's diverse needs there. But there's also some real commonalities in terms of the challenges people encounter, how to think about culture change, how to think about regulatory compliance and tolerance for errors, those types of things. And so they're able to add a lot of value. One tangible example, last week they did a hackathon with one of our portfolio companies where a few people from our team and a few people from the portfolio company built a POC of a new product over the course of a few days. And that was, able to help accelerate the product roadmap and also, skill build within the team and build conviction around different tools that they can use. So that's, really exciting. Lastly, on an expertise perspective, I'd say, that again can take many forms, but as a platform, we meet with over 2,000 fintech companies every year. And so that gives you a sense for the commercial insights that we can have on just, what innovations are happening, what's working commercially across different markets, across adjacent business models. And that allows us to be more impactful as board members and thought partners for management teams.
And kind of talking to thousands of companies every year, I presume over time, you're fine-tuning kind of your view on which areas you really want to play in and focus on. Can you share with us maybe those areas that you're most interested in?
So my team focuses on growth capital, which means to us both traditional growth equity, plain vanilla growth equity, and more bespoke hybrid capital as well. So we're really looking for companies that combine both exciting growth opportunities with resilience. And we're looking for relatively scaled businesses. So on the later stage strategy, it can be, Series C and later businesses. We'll also look at bootstrap businesses or sponsor controlled businesses. And we look majority in the US, but we also spend a good amount of time in other large developed fintech markets. So Canada, the UK, and Germany would be some of the top ones there. And then we're more opportunistic in other parts of the world. From a sector perspective or subsector perspective, I would say B2B payments and capital markets infrastructure, modernization are areas where we're spending quite a bit of time right now. We also continue to have high conviction around kind of retail participation and alternatives and the broader kind of opportunity for disruption within the wealth space. Those are probably some of the larger themes. Outside of the US, there's also still a lot of runway around providing access to credit and insurance products to a wider set of customers than are really served by kind of more incumbent players.
You have a very accomplished professional background and educational background. We always like to spend a little bit of time of getting to know you, the individual. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you were interested in early in life?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Toronto and I started my career in the US and then the UK, focused really on M&A and restructurings, mostly in financial services at that time. So like any graduate post GFC, spent a lot of time kind of working through where all the bodies were buried across financial services. I joined the direct private equity team at CPP in 2011 and focused on financial services and technology there, and ultimately became head of the capital solutions team there before moving over to Portage to launch this strategy.
And what was it that made it so compelling? I'm curious, when in 2022, were you coming in at the same time with these other folks? How did it all kind of come together?
So I had been, following the evolution of Portage and the building of their venture business for a number of years and was really impressed by, what they'd accomplished and felt really aligned with their approach. CPP Investments was a fantastic organization to be part of, a large organization and a great steward of capital. What really attracted me to Portage was the focus on fintech and the entrepreneurial spirit, the passion for supporting entrepreneurs, and the investment that had been made in really positioning ourselves to add value within the space. And, that's just something that Portage was really uniquely positioned to do well. And so I thought about, where could you build a business that, had a real right to win in this space? Portage was a natural choice.
It does seem like it's an opportunity to build kind of your own organization within a broader organization. How do you go about thinking about that process of building, an entrepreneur, so to speak? How intentional are you about like the culture you set and the types of people you bring in?
Yeah, I mean, very intentional. Obviously, this is very much a people business at the end of the day. It's, a people business in terms of building relationships externally, and it's a people business in terms of putting a lot of weight on kind of the rigor and diligence that you're all putting into investment decisions. And so, that is something that was a big attraction for me at Portage was the culture, was the values around rigor, entrepreneurship, collaboration that we really do put a lot of emphasis on. We talk about it regularly. We give people awards for living those values. And mostly, I think we all kind of inspire each other to do our best. And that doesn't mean that it's all kumbaya. Like we have rigorous debates. When you get people who are passionate about fintech and who, go deep on data, we have passionate debates about our thesis. We were all just together last week going through kind of some of our theses for this year. And there was, great debates about a wide range of topics and, similar as we look at specific investment opportunities. But I think we all kind of thrive on that and are able to do it in a collaborative, respectful way.
We're at the tail end of the conversation. I have two final questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who's had a profound influence on you?
It's always hard to pick just one, but I think probably like many people, my parents were some of the most influential people in my life. And I would say my father in particular had a big impact on my career in terms of encouraging my ambition, my curiosity, modeling an incredible work ethic, and also a willingness to take risks, and also teaching me the importance of contributing to society and finding meaning in your work, which I think does allow you to give more to your work when you're able to kind of find that purpose in it. And so I would give him a lot of credit.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity cause or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
So I'm really passionate about empowering women to take on leadership roles. I see that as a huge opportunity for our society and one we can make more progress on. In particular, I've had the opportunity to live in different countries and work in different types of organizations. And I've seen how, women thrive more or less in different environments. And I've also seen how specific individuals or experiences can have a huge impact on the trajectory of people's careers. So I try to focus on both how I can influence systems and also how I can directly support other women. And that's definitely one of those things that brings meaning to my career.
Well, Devon, I want to thank you again for taking the time. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.